Hello, everyone. This is Jeff Foley with Paladin Financial, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Paladin Financial Talk. With me, as always, our lovely co-host, Mr. Tony Shore. Hello, Tony.
Hello, Jeff.
How are you?
You know what? The one thing I can say is that I'm doing better than the markets are this week. I can say that once again this week. I can say I'm better than the markets.
I heard that on last week's show with Mr.
Did
Quick.
you?
Yes.
You already used that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can say it again this week.
I forget, what was your middle name? Anthony. What's your
Thomas?
Middle? Thomas. Yeah. Anthony Thomas. Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
Anthony.
We'll try not to use all three names today.
Oh, do not. Yeah. Do not do that. That's that strikes the fear of God in me.
Yes.
That's only my mom, Anthony Thomas Shore, and then I know I'm in trouble. But seriously, speaking of trouble, the markets, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff, what's going on?
Hey, it's the market's up and down, give or take a tariff. You know, it's
give or
been
take
a wild ride. We do a weekly market update that we send out to our clients, and it's on YouTube, and I don't know where it's at, Instagram and so
it's
forth,
everywhere.
But last week was an interesting week. We had a big decline, big increase, all in one jam-packed day, and there's a lot going on there. So it's a good reminder of, if you don't have a plan, you're going to get thrown around and ride that emotional curve that happens as the market does what it does. So we always tell people, we know the market's going to go down. We don't know when, we don't know for how long, we don't know what the cause is going to be, but thus far in history, it all ends the same, as the market has recovered after each thing that's happened along the way. So
sure. I mean, there's always events, there's always corrections. I mean, on average, there's a couple corrections a year usually. So, we see the 10% drops once in a while, and we see a bear market once in a while. 2022, we had two great up years. And then we saw that. So, I mean, we're not going to get into the markets, but the news is crazy. And I'm sure you hear from people, come in, new prospects that you're talking to are concerned about where their money is at, especially if they're in retirement. Yeah,
it's interesting to see every time the market has a big correction for a period of time, watching people's responses to that. It can vary based on what's going on. This time around, we've had very few clients call in, being concerned about the market. We've had more people call in wanting to put more money in there, ask the question, should I be putting more money in because things are down right now? So overall, people have been very optimistic, which is not what you would take from the news and watching the news, and the sky is falling. And some people certainly feel that way, but by and large, most people that we work with have been seeing this as an opportunity to either make more contributions, get their annual contributions out of the way, or do Roth conversions. So we're doing a lot of that right now as well.
Sure. And there are a lot of options out there. I think that just stresses the point that you need to be working with a financial professional. You need a plan in place. Don't make emotional decisions, like you always say. You always tell me, Tony, don't panic. They'll make more pizza. Oh, that's not about the markets, but you did say that. I remember you've said that to me a couple of times. But Jeff, I know you've been busy. I mean, you guys, when you run a financial firm like Paladin, you've got tax season, you've got market volatility. It's a perfect storm right there. I go in there and it's just like, to just chat, and everybody's busy, heads down, meeting with people. You guys are taking care of business. I like that.
Yeah, we're doing our darndest.
That's good. So what are we talking about today?
So this month we're talking about different books and resources that you can utilize to improve your financial knowledge. And today, last week, Jeff Quick talked about a particular book. Today
it was a good one.
Yeah, it's a classic. So today we're going to take a little bit of a different approach and more look at 8 tips for educating yourself financially. And then you can take that to apply to whatever book you're reading or whatever source you're getting newfound knowledge from. And so I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on a particular book today. I do have one on my nightstand right now that I'm reading that I had gotten partway through a number of years ago and picked it up here recently and really enjoy it. It's a book called What Matters Most. The author is Chanel Reynolds. And she had a really rough life experience. Her husband, she had a young kid. Her husband, they were young at the time, was hit by a car out riding his bike, and ended up passing away after several days. But she walks through the process that she went through of dealing with a catastrophe like that, and what things they didn't have in place, what things she was thankful they did have in place, and advice for people to, as she puts in the subtitle of the book, get your S word together.
Sure.
So it's a good book. I recommend people, particularly if you don't have anything in place as far as an estate plan, or you wanting to do a better job with it, to check that out. So What Matters Most by Chanel Reynolds.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot better than my book choice for one of the podcasts this month was going to be
Dr. Seuss.
Green Eggs and Ham.
No,
how did you
completely guess? That's
you
right.
completely guess Green Eggs and Ham? But I think yours sounds like it's going to have more of an impact.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe.
We'll see. Jury's out.
Maybe. Or look, I thought you were going to come in here with Stephen King's It, like it's that thick, and or War of the the
Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith.
Oh.
I did think about it.
War and Peace.
But yeah, some best ideas to consider, best practices can consider. Any good book that, if you Google and you look for a top 10 list of good financial books, you're going to see some great ones there. But even wildly popular books can have some suggestions and advice in there that is oversimplified in some situations, or maybe too risky, or maybe it doesn't apply to you,
or it's outdated now.
Yeah,
you got to watch out what advice you get from a book, especially about finances, because things they change from week to week. That's what we rely on you and the folks at Paladin for, is you stay on top of all the trends and the changes in the laws. And
there are a number of things that are kind of core principles that stand the test of time, but you have to evolve as technology and life around us changes.
Sure.
But 8 tips. The first one is to, I think, limit your news. So a lot of people spend too much time watching the news, and you have to step back and remember what it is that their job is you have journalists that are in front of a TV camera, but the business is to sell advertisements and get you to keep coming back so they can sell more advertisements. They are a business. So understand that as you listen to the news, what their end goal with that is. So it doesn't mean you should turn that off, but I would suggest in general limiting how much time you're spending with any one news source, and also look at diversifying, if you will, and considering other opinions and resources that you can learn from. But if you think about the news, if you're a daily watcher of the news, you spend a lot of time with it. When was the last time you actually changed something in your life as a result of something you heard on the news? I was thinking about that the other day.
Interesting.
I couldn't think of something that I've changed.
No, me either.
You be aware of the market and things like that, but generally it's not life-changing things in my humble opinion.
And the news is going to try to present everything like it is a life-changing event. And always say the sky is falling, because, in the immortal words of Don Henley, give us dirty laundry. You know what I mean? The Dirty Laundry song, that was a big hit back in the 80s, but that's what he was singing about, how the news media,
bring you back in.
If it bleeds, it leads. That was the old saying.
Yeah. And not chasing headlines along with that, as there's something going on, tariffs or insert whatever the different topic is not chasing and reacting to that. Take a pause. You learn something new. Think about how that might impact your financial plan, but don't be overly responsive to that. So limit your news intake. Number 2, I would say, is consider the source. And that somewhat ties in with that. That might be news channels, whether you're red or blue or somewhere in between. Consider that source. But also your neighbors, your relatives, is everyone has their own life experiences. They have their own prejudices. And just because they're doing or not doing something doesn't mean that you should do the same. Just like we learned as a kid, is all your friends jump off a cliff. Would you jump off a cliff as well?
Right. I heard that one from my mom a lot.
Yeah. I tried it one time, but it turned out okay. But yeah, be aware of their motivations and potentially conflicts of interest as well. But that's a common one that comes up, I think of, is with Social Security planning. A lot of people do what their parents did, or do the opposite of what their parents did, just out of,
or what their buddy at work who had retired before them did, or their brother-in-law did, or a neighbor. Yeah.
So they're not you. Use that, ask some questions, learn about it, but it doesn't
Yep.
necessarily mean you should do the same. The third one is read more for knowledge and less for opinions. So depending on what source you're talking about, someone might have an axe to grind, if you will, when they write a book, for example. Read that and use that as a starting point to explore outside of the book. So if you learn a new topic, a new concept, a new term, go outside of that, look at different sources to kind of cross-check that and learn more from a different perspective. Be careful of opinion pieces, and I'll talk about that in our next one as well. But read more for knowledge, less for opinions.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if it's a particular pundit
Yep.
on one side of the fence or the other, it can get political or financial. They might have an axe to grind, as somebody whose whole job is to try to get people to invest in the stock market, might not have good things to say about other savings methods, but they may be biased, right?
Yeah, that happens a lot in our industry, and people outside of our industry that like or don't like certain investment tools where they have an opinion about it, and they try to apply that to everyone, which is not appropriate. Number 4 is read the opposition, and another kind of a book series, not a series, but an author that I've read all of his books, David McKnight.
Oh yeah, I've read his books as well. Yeah.
So he writes about how to reduce taxes through different strategies, and that's a good example. I've read all of those. I've gotten some good ideas and analogies, if you will, out of those to share with our clients. But he does have a very strong opinion about certain things that, in my opinion, don't apply to everyone. So that's a great example. Well-written books, but a little bit too hardcore in certain.
Right. He's got a lot of great ideas and is well respected in his niche.
Yeah.
But then when he comments outside his niche, and there are other people, there's a well-known radio show host that we know that has a great show and has a great a program to help people get out of debt. But when these people start talking about things that they don't deal directly with and aren't licensed for, like yourself, you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
What is their specialty, and focus on that and utilize them for that. Yeah, because that's important. And those are great. I mean, I love David McKnight, and I love a lot of people, other radio financial hosts are great. But I'm not gonna, you take some of it with a grain of salt. Yeah.
So use that as a resource, and then read someone that has a different opinion about that to help learn the other side of the.
Read the opposition. Read both sides of the story, and that's where a financial professional, a trusted professional like yourself, Jeff, and the Paladin team, your advisors there, because they'll get to know you before you come in as a neutral party. Yep. You're not a pundit. You're not a proponent for any one financial thing. You're not trying to talk them into doing anything. You're looking at where they're at and figuring out what's the best way to achieve their goals. Whereas a pundit or a book author is trying to get across their point and their message, and they're going to say whatever they can to do that.
Yep. Good point.
Yeah.
Number 5, ask some critical questions. So ask yourself, does this apply to me in my situation? And sometimes that entails you knowing enough to know, the answer to that question. Always statements are kind of annoying to me when you read a book and you always should do this, always should do that, and everyone this and everyone that. That's not necessarily the case. Being aware of politics and political opinions on things that can sometimes, in politics, not to get into politics, but in politics, a lot of times it gets so extreme that they tune out to other opinions that might be correct. So be aware of that. Extremism and a lovely compliance term in our industry, puffery. So
puffery. Really, I love that.
Yeah, like
puffery.
The gold commercials are the classic of this. So where you turn on and you hear how great gold is, and you're not going to lose any money, and blah blah blah, drives me nuts. But be aware of extreme statements and double check what they're talking about. And again, we touched on this earlier, is cross-checking that with known principles, things like diversification, not putting too many of your eggs in any one basket, time-tested advice that a lot of the classic books that we're talking about this month are going to be utilizing. So
Yeah, I like that one. You know, is it consistent with known principles that have worked over
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right? Like not having all your eggs in one basket. We've all heard that phrase a million times, and that's because it's good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 6 would be making sure the advice is realistic and it's practical. So, is it something that applies to a wide range of people? Does it apply to your situation? Are there concepts that are, again, overly simplified or overly complex? So, some financial gurus, if you're a financial guru with a microphone and you have a big audience that's listening to you, you can't make things too complicated because no one wants to hear that.
Right.
I want to keep it simple. So a lot of times what they do is they oversimplify things and say, again, you should always do this or do that. And you got to know enough to understand whether, hey, you're oversimplifying this issue and understand a little bit more. Um, Making sure there's transparency about risk. So does the author talk about some of the flip side of that? What's the opposition say? What are some risks of taking their approach that they're recommending? Is another consideration. So how balanced are they in that? So make sure it's realistic, it's practical for your situation.
Yeah, that's really good. And again, having that balanced perspective, transparency, you have to take into account risk and what your own personal risk tolerance is. I like that that's where you start with planning with people is to see what their risk tolerance is. That's good. What's the next one?
Number 7 is using critical thinking. So being skeptical about it. And good authors will point out things like that where, hey, in this situation, this is incorrect and I would take a different course of action, or it's, again, avoiding those always statements. So be skeptical as you read through things. Again, cross-check and look at different resources. Good books, in my opinion, are going to help you, encourage you to change your behavior and take a different approach to things, and it's not just all about the mechanics. So think critically as you read and not just absorb that. That's one of the things that in when I went through college, a couple of the professors you were consistent and they would talk about where you're here to learn how to think, not as much the knowledge you're going to walk out of, but how do you look at and apply things. So I think that's important, is be critical in your thinking.
Yeah, critical thinking is important in all aspects of life, but especially when it comes to our finances, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
The last one is to not misuse good advice. And one of the common authors that comes up as a great author on different financial books, Benjamin Graham, who wrote The Intelligent Investor, one of his approaches is value investing. So the idea that you are going to buy stocks that have reduced in value for some reason, and a driver off of that is the PE ratio. So if you're looking at only the PE ratio and you're following that methodology, you're scooping up stocks that are off, and that just because they have a low PE ratio doesn't mean it is a good buy.
Right.
So it might be, might have issues and you want to stay away from that company. So be aware of it. Again, critically think about, does this make sense? Another good one, I think, is common one with financial gurus is having overly optimistic investment returns. Like you should be making 10% a year. If you're not making 10% a year, change stocks and change ETFs and fire your advisor, 12% a year. Market doesn't work that way. It's not every year is going to be that great.
And we see the hype machines on some of CNBC or whatever financial Fox Business, the financial channels. Usually they have a guy on there that's like, you've got to do that, you're gonna make usually they have one person on there that's really hyping. And it's always a bull market. It's always going to be next year is going to be a huge bull market.
Buy
buy. Yep.
Tying in with that, as you're approaching retirement, we've talked a lot on the show about sequence of returns risk. So recognizing market does go up and down, and if you have bills to pay and you're pulling money out when the market's down, you're feeling that sequence of returns risk, and that can cause a big long-term impact to your plan. So how we protect against that and minimize that risk is by having our buckets. So you have things that are more conservative, moderate, and aggressive, and you can adjust over time where you pull that money out in order to reduce that sequence of returns risk.
Yeah, that's huge. Well, those were 8 important things that people need to be aware of when they're trying to get answers and look for financial advice. And that's with books, anything, TV. Don't rely on one source. You had a lot of great tips. Limit your news, consider the source. I love all of these. So if our listeners out there want to get a financial plan in place or want to talk to you about this, maybe they don't have a retirement income plan set up. Maybe they don't have a solid investment plan. How can they get a hold of you and your team?
Before we do that, have you shown everyone your new product line, the new Mattel product line?
Oh, yeah, they have
the audience?
Yes, I will do that. I have to do that right now. So I'll pull this up just so people can see. There you go.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, that the folks in our digital marketing department thought they'd be funny, and Mattel's got a new action figure out. And I do use the term action loosely, Jeff. With this action figure it's more of a figure.
So looking at this, we have the microphone, check. We have the Coke Zero off camera, check.
Yeah.
Phone in here somewhere.
My phone is in my pocket in the red case. Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. No Starbucks.
That was this morning.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. They've hit all the bases. The only thing they missed is the thumbs up that I always do. And maybe a vinyl record album should be there somewhere. Yeah,
good.
Listening to music. But otherwise, they completely captured the essence of Tony, radio show co-host. So, but it's been a great show, Jeff. Thanks so much for bringing that up.
Yes,
I showed it to you earlier.
Should have ended earlier, but hey.
Yeah, you called me out on that one.
To answer your question, folks, if you want to give us a call, reach out to us. You can call us at 651-842-8406 or visit us online at paladinfinancial.com. You can email us at info@paladinfinancial.com. We hope you got something out of today's show and continue to listen this month to different books and resources that you can utilize to improve your financial life. And we wish you the best. Thank you.